The NBA offseason just doesn't stop. Ime Udoka just got suspended for a year for some unspecified and wildly speculated about affairs, and Robert Sarver, the owner of the Phoenix Suns and Mercury, is in the process of selling both teams following a suspension of his own. Welcome to AJM in the AM. I'm Anthony Mero with a drama-filled episode 30. Let's start with Udoka, since it's rather short and sweet, although anything but simple. Udoka apparently had an affair with a female Celtics employee, and while this doesn't violate any NBA rules, it was in violation of a team rule, which led to this suspension. The speculated drama isn't really worth getting into. I didn't start this channel to talk about some Jersey Shore BS, but this has stirred the pot a bit between ESPN's Stephen A. Smith, Kendrick Perkins, and Malika Andrews. Stephen A. and Perk were asking for some secondary accountability. This was, as presented, a consensual relationship. All the confirmed reports state this. However, as far as we know, only Udoka was suspended with violating that team rule. And while I do agree with not putting the behind-the-scenes person's name out there, they don't have the same media presence, media training that Udoka has. Being behind the scenes, they wouldn't be able to handle the same media pressure Udoka can. But that withheld information and that secrecy has a consequence. It is directly leading to wild guesses and the internet attacking the entire female staff of the Boston Celtics. So in the interest of protecting one, the Celtics in turn have opened Pandora's box for their entire female staff, which is wildly unfair for those that didn't break any rules. The internet gonna internet, as unfair as any of these secondary accusations may be. All we do know is Udoka hooked up with a female employee, which led to a year-long suspension and some unspecified monetary destruction of him as well. In my opinion, this will more than likely lead to a resignation or termination sometime this year. This does put the Celtics season on some ice too. Finding a new quality coach may be tough. They have promoted Joe Mazzulla to be the interim head coach. Mazzulla is only 34 years old and is now the head coach of a team that has championship aspirations, especially after coming 2 wins shy of a title last year. The Celtics are probably going to be looking for a more permanent solution. Maybe Mazzulla can be that guy, but he was just coaching Division II basketball just 3 years ago. Even so, the Celtics have hit a massive snag. They definitely didn't need this kind of a distraction. If they do opt to keep Udoka on ice for the duration of that year-long suspension, and he opts to stick with the team during this stretch, this will obviously be a continued point of contention, speculation, and annoying repetitive press conferences throughout the season. Not to mention the on-the-court impact of the players now having 3 head coaches in 3 years, just to potentially revert back to Udoka next season. A consistent theme with title contending teams is continuity within the roster and head coaching. Rookie head coaching wins aside, being able to sustain constant title contention usually requires the same voice at the head. The Celtics are in for a doozy to start this year, and if the situation is worse than the Celtics brass initially broadcast, it could get significantly uglier. Now out west, we have the Robert Sarver situation. He was outed for saying some rather racist things, making a hostile work environment, and also making sexist comments as well. I won't get into exact quotes, you can find them pretty easily online, but some of the language he used is pretty disgusting. His words on a word-for-word basis, is weird that we're measuring it this way, but they were worse than Donald Sterling. And Sterling got voted out almost immediately after that story broke. The league did go a little soft on their initial punishment of a $10 million fine and a 1-year suspension. But behind the scenes, there was a push to force him to sell, which I think is a positive step in the right direction. Whether it was from LeBron and players tweeting for a stronger stance, PayPal opting out of their jersey badge contract for as long as Sarver was affiliated with that franchise, or other factors, Sarver is now in a position to sell. Now I do want you to think about Adam Silver's position. He was criticized pretty heavily for that minimal punishment. I think it would be hard to force Sarver to sell when technically Silver is still an employee of all 30 teams. If he forced another vote to sell, it puts the other owners in a bad spot, both internally amongst each other and externally with the public perception of what their vote means. Imagine if one of the owners voted Sarver could keep his team. How would that look for them? I think most people would vilify that owner, try to cancel him. So with that in consideration, I can understand the hesitance to force another public sell in the interest of protecting the other owners from that public discourse. But now Sarver is on his way out anyway. The league keeps a strong public image against racism and internal hostilities, but more interesting than all of that, who is going to buy the team? Jeff Bezos has emerged as a candidate, which would give the Suns the most spending power in the entire NBA. The luxury tax would basically mean nothing if they had the deepest pockets, not just in the league, but literally the world. For some perspective, Sarver, without telling the team, is worth a monstrous $800 million. After he sells the team, let's say the Suns are worth $3 billion. They are not, but let's give him that $3 billion. He would still be closer to my broke $0 having self and net worth than he would be to Jeff Bezos. The situation with wanting to pay Ayton would never have even been a question, since the luxury tax would basically be meaningless. Even so, the Suns' drama came and went rather quickly, and unlike the Celtics, ownership changes don't really impact the team directly outside of a few annoying, reoccurring interview questions. While coaching changes directly impact a team's performance, ownership is pretty far removed from how a team performs on the court. Plus, there have been rumors and reports about Sarver's antics behind the scenes for basically a decade now, and I'm surprised it took this long for a resolution. The NBA offseason just never stops, and as news continues to come up, we will mention it here. This episode does delay the Cavs' updated roster one now that they got Donovan Mitchell, but I'll have that for you next week. If you like this content, please hit the subscribe button to join the Ant Colony to not miss another video, and like this video to push us up that YouTube algorithm. As always, thank you for watching. I appreciate it every time, and I will see you next week.